because today is Tuesday and usually we record on Wednesdays. So I've had to.
I woke up and thought it was like Thursday today, so I'm pretty off.
My kids had a 2-hour delay Monday, and then they were off last week for Tuesday and Friday for snow and ice. And
oh man,
we lucked out and got an extended stay with the class guinea pigs.
Nice.
Yeah.
How fun.
Actually, my son did everything, which was fantastic. I was really proud of him for stepping up. The worst part, honestly, was our dog. So we have 2 dogs. We have a greyhound. She was completely fine. She could care less. She just does her own thing anyways. And my King Charles Cavalier, he's usually the one that you'll hear barking in the back of episodes because the greyhound doesn't really bark. He was not very happy that they were here and wanted them to know that.
Oh man, that's so funny. Man, I really wanted a guinea pig growing up for like a solid 2 months of my life. And we had a lot of rodents growing up, but that one was like, that was over the line, I think.
Missed it.
It's like,
do you have a ferret?
And gerbils. We had hamsters and gerbils mostly, but we had a lot of them. Like we went through them too quickly, I think, unfortunately. But yeah, and I mean, I had a lot of siblings too, so we each had one. And yeah, there's a time when they were, and then my brother had sugar gliders, which
what are those?
I would not recommend that. It's like a flying squirrel, but yeah. Basically, it's like a smaller, kind of cuter one, but they're nocturnal and they're really loud, and they're also like they're marsupials, so they're super like attached to you. So basically, like my brother kind of got bored of them, and they more or less died from depression because they like have to be like attached and played with, and they're also like in a cage, and they need more room. So I would not recommend it. It was cool and really unique, but they were so loud at night and like are kind of high maintenance. They're not like a gerbil where it's just like they just kind of doing their thing, run on the mouse wheel.
My sister had a parakeet, and I'm pretty sure it died from depression too.
That's tough.
I mean, it was like sorry.
We kind of went against the grain, and we had rats instead of like hamsters and gerbils because like all the hamsters bit us, and we hated it. But the rats were like super friendly. You like put them on your shoulder and walk around the house. Pretty cool.
That's so funny.
I'm just tweeting about this. But with the parakeet, it flies around the room a couple times and poops over everything. And then it's like, I don't really want it to come out anymore. And then that's the poor things in the cage.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, there's some people like love birds and do great with them, but I definitely do a lot of people. I feel like kids who like wanted a bird and then it was kind of a mistake.
Well, I've heard of people getting like seriously sick from them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because of the stuff. Even like the guinea pigs, my kids were probably like, stop talking about like, I don't know. Every time they would touch it or come near the cage, I'm like, wash your hands.
Yeah, for sure.
But I remember, like, I think that was 6th grade. One of my friends had a guinea pig, and I went over there one time to take care of it while they were out of town. And I just remember it being a lot bigger than these guinea pigs were. And so I looked it up, and they can grow up to like 18 inches. And there was a picture where it was like, hey, this guinea pig is the same size as a pig.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, that's huge.
Does React Router have its own Twitter handle?
No, just do the @Remix Run.
Okay.
Someday this will be more straightforward.
Okay, let me just finish tweeting this and we'll get going.
Yeah.
We need a good emoji. Okay, there we go. Post. Okay. Let's go. It's always fun when we do these with friends, and it's just like super easy and laid back, and it's gonna be a good conversation. Okay.
Oh, good. I'm glad that's how you feel.
It's how I feel. Okay, where's the song? There it is. Okay. in case you are wondering, dear listener, the compressed intro is in between this rock. Oh, I can't even hear it. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Rock and then this giant laugh. I don't even know what that sounds like. Okay. We're queued up and ready to go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. And I am so excited about today's episode. We have Brooks on to talk about Remix and React Router and the future.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compressed.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brad Garapi, and I'm a senior front-end developer at Stripe.
And as I mentioned, today we have Brooks. Hey, Brooks, thanks for coming.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, this is number 2. So we have decided, or I've decided, that if you're a guest 5 times, that you're going to get a jacket like SNL. So we've got to figure out 3 more episodes. Nobody has gotten the jacket yet, but I've picked out the jacket. It's going to be in high demand.
Who's closest right now?
I'd say either James Perkins or Michael Chan.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for the reveal of what the jacket looks like.
It's gonna be so cool. Like I said, people are gonna be excited to be on the show now.
Yeah,
just absolutely. Clamoring to revisit, to come back. Okay, so one of the reasons that I've been super stoked about today's episode is so Brooks and I, you were on the show, then we met in person in April, and Remix announced, hey, we're gonna take a nap. Just very strange and not, right? Right. My favorite was getting on Twitter that night and just reading through the threads and the streams and things like that, because people are freaking out. But I had the privilege of hanging out with Ryan and Michael at the conference. They're good friends with David and Tom, and so they hung out with us quite a bit. And they kind of explained more of the logic and the philosophy behind it, which most people didn't get. I mean, they got the presentation on stage, but just like behind closed doors conversations and the future strategic move that they're making and their roadmap and plans and stuff like that. So walking away from that conversation, I was like, this makes complete sense. And this is going to be amazing. And so now here we are 6 months later, you guys have released React Router 7. Like there's a lot more happening. And so I'm excited to have you on the show and kind of break down where Remix and React Router are now and just what the plans for the future are going to look like.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm glad you enjoyed reading all those tweets and comments and everything. That was definitely like trial by fire for me, which is great. Learned a lot, but yeah, it was definitely more stressful for me, but at this point, it was good. I'm happy. I'm happy to learn how to communicate these things better, and also to learn that like sometimes you just kind of can't win. Like, especially if you are making big pivots or you are kind of changing up things from the course you were going. Just people aren't always going to read the entire blog post. Just trying to learn how to make the most important information very clear, very upfront, but still like not back off from explaining the reasoning, and also just being secure in your position. And not just letting like mob mentality decide what you should do necessarily.
I think even as I've done more and more in tech, I've come to realize that opinions are a really good thing. And a lot of times people want to lean into that mob mentality, but you have to have a stance, and it's better to have a strong stance and stick to it than to be all waffly and loosey-goosey about it.
Yep. Agreed.
So do you want to explain why you took a nap? Maybe we start there.
Yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, definitely please ask questions where stuff doesn't make sense. We've kind of we had a plan. Was it Mike Tyson who said that everyone has a plan, and then until you get punched in the face, right? So we definitely had a plan, and I think we've actually stuck with it pretty well, but certainly things have developed and changed, and mostly timelines. Like, of course, estimates are always off. So when we announced this whole like Remix is taking a nap, we're focusing on React Router 7. We're kind of merging the packages, was another way we talked about it. We had like multiple metaphors that we've kind of had to work through. We kind of expected that we would be done with that process in like a couple months, and then it ended up taking much longer. So I think it was announced at ReactConf in April or May or whenever that was of 24, and then in November, right before we all went on break for Thanksgiving, that's when we actually were able to release React Router 7. So it took a little bit longer. Good reasons for that, but that's just the story. So that was one aspect of it. I think it created this bigger pause. And then we've been wanting to talk a little bit more about the future of like Remix, but we're wanting to kind of give space for React Router 7. So that's kind of the high level what's going on. But basically, at the kind of the main core of it, of what we wanted to do was, we've been at Shopify, I think like 2 years now, a little over 2 years. The Remix team has as a whole, which has been super awesome, and that really has given just this great incubator for like the Remix team to work on ambitious projects, to work on Remix and React Router as like these very like core libraries and frameworks for people to use. We're not really in this like, oh, we got to sell it and we got to make it like this thing that we're trying to get all these users because we're trying to make money off of it. Like, we want users, but we want users because we think it's a good framework and we think people are going to be able to build really great things with it. So that kind of took this pressure off and allowed us to kind of step back and say like, okay, what do we really want to build? What do we really want to, to focus on? And so we started realizing like there was this bit of this gap of what was going on with like React Server Components and React 19, and just like the future of what React was. React had become much more like server centric, and that was in a lot of ways kind of what we felt like Remix was supposed to be doing, and like kind of stepped into as like, oh, it's this server side rendering first framework. And so we kind of at first had like this bit of like a conflict identity crisis with like React, and we're like, oh, is React just like taking our job or taking what was really great about this framework? So at first we were very much like struggling with this, and then kind of what we decided was, we realized, you know what, honestly, like React Router is really the thing that a lot of people are using. Like it has millions and millions of downloads every single month. I think the last time I looked at the like NPM charts, not that these numbers are always like hard, you shouldn't read too much into them. They're directionally correct, right? But it's about like half of every React download, or for every 2 React downloads, there's like a React Router download essentially. So it's like 50% theoretically of React apps are using React Router. So we realized like, actually, that's really where the community needs the most. So instead of trying to tell everyone like, hey, come over to Remix, come use this new thing, we felt like we had a good opportunity to actually just meet a lot of developers and teams where they were. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to take all the great things that we had in Remix and put them into React Router. This was also something we'd done a couple of times before. So we had all the like the loaders and actions in those paradigms. We created a way that you could use those paradigms and have like data routers inside a React Router. We did that maybe a year prior, if I remember correctly. So this is already something we'd been doing, and this honestly just kind of completed that entire arc of the remixing of React Router and saying, hey, this is like how we think React apps are best built. And so we're giving you everything that we think is the way that you can build a really great React Router or React app. You can use it as just a library with React Router the way you've always used it. Here's this Vite plugin, though, that makes it really frameworky, and you have like the file-based routing if you want that, and you have the code splitting automatically, all these things. And then this opens us up to add all the like React specific features like RSC and give that to anyone who's using React Router and try and allow you to just upgrade your dependencies. And then you've got RSC instead of saying like, oh, well, I need to go to Remix or I need to go to Next.js or some other framework. We're trying to make that story a lot simpler. So that was like first and foremost, our mindset was, how do we actually help all these developers we have? And then there's the kind of like, okay, so then what is Remix piece, which we can definitely talk about as well.
Yeah, I think before we do that, let me ask you, what exactly is React Router? So I used it a long time ago and it was wonderful. It used to be the piece that the React team would say, if you want to use React, use React Router. And then it kind of went away and they started leaning more into Next, which is kind of an interesting transition. But it felt more like a way to deliver pages and URLs on the client side. But now it's like, are you focusing all your energies on, like, I'm going to put air quotes here, just a router, or does it do more than that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so yeah, React Router is a lot of people. Yeah, that's a really great question. So React Router predates like my career, which is crazy to think about. I think it's like 10 years old at this point since Ryan and Michael started it. So it very much has been there right alongside React for most of the time. A lot of people thought it was like an official router. It is not. React has been like kind of, for better or worse, never really had many official things besides React and React DOM, and a couple other like really small packages. But React Router has kind of always been there for a really long time. It was kind of the de facto router. There are other great routers now, like Tanstack Router. I think there's Wouter, which is like a very small React Router like router. But basically, yeah, it's a way to, what is a router? It's just a way to match URLs to like views, more or less, and to allow you to link and to navigate to those views. And specifically, React Router was really helpful because it added all the like the SPA navigation. So it made it feel like you're still navigating around like a traditional MPA multi-page app, but you're doing it in a single page app client-side rendering way. So that was really helpful at the time. And then as like React, or rather Next.js first came up, and then React Router and all these like very server-oriented frameworks kind of came up, MPAs, multi-page apps with like that SPA layer on top became really popular. And so you kind of needed to mix both of them. And React Router always had these capabilities, but it was very much like, if you want that framework experience, you can use React Router. You just have to set everything up yourself. You have to kind of build your own little framework, which is what most people did. The previous company I worked at, we had our own like version of what Next.js was essentially built on top of React Router and like Express. So we'd server render first, and then we would like hydrate and all that kind of stuff. So we were just doing all the work that these teams now do for us, which is really great. So that's what React Router has kind of always been. And even when we had Remix, even in 2020, when Remix first came out, React Router was always a dependency. So it was always what Remix was built on top of. So Remix really was just a framework built on top of React Router, just some specific opinions, server-side rendering, loaders, actions, all that stuff set up for you, but it was still using React Router as that routing library. Did that answer your question, or did I miss something?
That's perfect.
So you covered like the client-side routing aspect of React Router, but now React Router can operate in basically a different mode that you guys are calling framework mode. Can you talk a little bit about what that framework mode is and what it does differently?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brad. Yeah, we are talking about them as modes. We found that to be the most helpful like paradigm. Unfortunately, with all paradigms, like it's not 100% true, because the modes do overlap. Like you do use a lot of the library features with the framework mode, but it is just to differentiate of like, you're just installing React Router as a library and you're going to set up the routing and doing everything yourself. That's great. But if you want to use the framework mode, we offer you this Vite plugin. That's like the main thing that it is you get this plugin. And then you get these like route module conventions. So if you export a loader, that means, oh, this will run whenever there's a GET request, or whenever you go to this page for the first time. You export a default component. Okay, that's going to be your view for this page. So it gives you like those little paradigms. It does all sorts of things like code splitting for you. We're adding middleware that's coming pretty soon. So that'll be a feature baked in. Same with React Server components. React Server components, you have to create your own React server, however that works. If you don't have like a framework setting this all up for you. So it's really just, it's everything that Remix was, but just saying like, hey, here, now it's this optional plugin that you can just add to your React Router, your Vite application, and use with React Router as it already was.
I want to take the time to talk about like both of those things that you just mentioned, both the middleware and the React server component support. So we'll start with middleware, long requested Remix feature.
Yes.
How is it, like, how does it work in React Router?
That's a great question. This is like one of my to-dos right now, is to go figure out what's going on there. I can definitely speak to though, like what you just said of like long requested, kind of a little bit embarrassing that we don't have it, in my opinion. The story for that though is we have tried to develop it like multiple times, and it's not for lack of like engineering prowess. We just always would come up against like, oh, we need this feature first. We need like single fetch was some big feature that we kind of added. And without going into all the details of it, it simplified how like the fetching process worked, and it simplified how a middleware would work on top of that. So we wanted to get that feature in first. And then it came to like, oh, well, like we need to ship React Router 7. Why we can't just keep adding features, otherwise we're never going to ship. This is the frustration of minors versus major versions of code, and it's just like, no, we have to get the major out and then we can add it. So now we've actually we have it in development. There's a PR, I think. I don't know if the PR is up, but I know it'll be up pretty soon. I think even this week. We were talking about the team being able to play with it. So I don't totally remember the API very well, but I have it on good authority. It is supposed to be very straightforward and very, very simple. I think it's basically another export is the idea. And then it'll just run ahead of like your, I think it's also inspired very much by like the Express API, to where like you get the request and then you could say like, you tell it when it should continue on its request. So you can have branching logic inside your middleware, if that makes sense. You can set it up to do authentication. I believe it'll also, if I remember right, I think you get to define it, per route. Essentially, you can say, oh, I have middleware across like all my app specific routes. Whereas like the about page doesn't need the authentication middleware. It's just the about page. So you have that kind of fine level control as well, I believe.
So I guess drilling into that bit, I love that it's an export, because I think it just gets my mind right of like, this is what I'm writing and where I'm writing. It dictates where it runs. So you're saying because it's an export and you want to do, let's say, the whole subtree of /dashboard or something, you would just export it at like the top level of that dashboard folder. And because it's in that folder structure, it would apply.
Yes, exactly. And I'm looking back on it now. This is pretty funny. So October 11th of 2023 is when Ryan wrote the original RFC that we have. And it's exactly what you're defining. Basically, you're within a route module and you can export middleware. We'll also potentially have the idea of like client middleware. So if you just want a middleware piece to run on your like client only, not on the server, or if you're just doing only like a pure SPA, you don't have a server, it could still be helpful to have a concept of a middleware. So that's essentially it. Is at least with this initial API, it's basically just an array of functions, and you just pass all these functions into this thing, and they run one at a time, just in order of how you want them to run. They do what they do essentially. So that's the initial idea we had. I'm sure there's some things that have changed a little bit about how it all works, but I haven't dug into the most recent details. But like I said, we've had the idea and the API for like over a year at this point. It's just been getting all the ducks in a row to actually develop it.
That is now let's pivot and talk a little bit about the React server component situation. Like you mentioned, it's like you have to create your own React server component server, and I feel like React doesn't even really document that in the first place. How was the process integrating it for y'all, and like how is it today?
Yeah, this has been another one that's been really interesting. I remember before I even joined the team, I think it was at ReactConf 2023. I like one of the team members was showing me demos of Remix working with React server components, which is kind of wild to think that we're like 2 years later still working this out. So again,
hard.
It's not very. It is hard,
so
and
hard.
it was very much developed in public a little bit, which is like, okay, sometimes like there's lots of reasons historically, I think, why that happened. As far as like the documentation, we basically, my understanding is we had to like more or less just look at other people's code examples and like kind of digest what like Next had done and whatnot. So there's a lot of reasons that happen, but it's honestly like I'm glad. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to tack on, it's not just like React undocumented features. It's also, in our case, Vite undocumented features, and the fact that they just released Vite 6. So there's a talk at ReactConf this past year by somebody that I really admire and respect. And they gave a talk and installed or got RSC running in 20 minutes during their talk. And I felt like that was the biggest disservice to framework authors, because it makes the rest of the community look in and say, well, why don't you have it? You've made an announcement and it's 2 years later. Why is it so hard? But it's like the RSC part isn't necessarily the hard part. It's all the other stuff that comes with it. So I totally feel your pain. Like Redwood has been struggling along trying to get it working in our framework as well. So I mean, it's real.
That's exactly right. I appreciate that. And it is tough. It's one thing to have a demo of something, right? And it's another thing to say like, okay, now I'm going to give this to thousands, if not millions of developers to just like go ham with. And so
well, it's the SSR piece. Sorry, I'm just gonna drive this home a little bit because I say this out of defense to like the Remix team and the Redwood team and just everybody else that's been trying to solve it, how hard it is. But like it's the server side rendering piece, it's the hot reloading, trying to get your dev server piece to work. It's the caching. Like caching has been one of the biggest things that I've struggled with when I've tried to build with Next, is trying to get all that stuff to work. So it's not just the RSC and the delivering of it, it's how it's integrated and works throughout your entire application.
Yeah, exactly. And like the number of decisions kind of proliferate. So the way we're trying to do RSC is we're trying to do React Server components from loaders, which means that you can basically just send a React Server component down as data, which I think a lot of people resonate with and really like that idea. But in some ways, it's a bit counter to how React would like RSCs to be thought of. They want it to be very much like, no, everything is a React Server component, and then you opt out, and then things become client components. So even little like subtle decisions like that affect the way that just we think about it, we present things, the way that we open up these APIs. And like you mentioned with Vite, that was a big piece as well. Is Vite 6 needed to come out. Specifically, there's this API called the Environment API that was like really necessary for how we wanted to wire all these things up. And so it was us, it was Cloudflare, it was the React team. It's all these different people trying to work together and trying to figure out how do we build this, like these fundamental building blocks that all of these frameworks are going to build on top of. And so that it for the end user feels really good. The complexity can be hidden from them. The complexity they don't care about can be hidden from them, but you're not totally just hiding everything, like, hidden caching that they can't control, which is like something Next is fixed to their credit. But yeah, that's very much the hard piece, is getting all those little dials right. And it's really not just a like, oh, this is this team's version of it, and this is this team's version. Like, we're all sharing a lot of technology, which has been really cool. I think everyone will benefit a lot from that, but it means the pace can be just a little bit slower to get all this stuff out. But yeah, I'm super excited. That's another one we should have like experimentals out on like really soon. We're trying to figure out exactly the API we want. We're trying to work with getting a PR merged into the React repo as well, so that they have like a good environment that they can test on and make sure that when they change internals, it doesn't break things. So there's a lot of pieces just to make sure that we are, even if it is experimental, we're still presenting directionally the right thing for everyone.
One of the things, maybe you can clear this up for me in my mind, is that I feel like Remix, one of the things that differentiated it was that it had more of a server component, because you have, and component's probably not the right word, it's loaded, but you have like your loaders and your actions within your file that these things are going to happen on the server. And so there's a more serverful to Remix. So what's the benefit of having RSC with Remix if you already have serverful stuff happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the piece of like Remix, and now all this stuff is back in React Router, which is really cool, is basically it kind of provided basically an MVC model, right? What is it? Model view controller paradigm to React, which I think a lot of people really resonate with, especially people who came from maybe a Rails background. They really like that. So that continues to stay, because a loader, even with RSC, a loader is still necessary to intercept the GET request and to be that kind of first piece. An action is still necessary for mutations, or it can be, depending on what you're doing. Of course, with server actions, that even gets changed a bit, which is great. There's definitely very cool DX you get. So yeah, one aspect is there's a developer experience that people really like. There's this with React Server components, the way that you can kind of interweave your server and your client together. There's like less of this like barrier, or this split, where it's like, okay, my loader and my action, those happen on the server, and then here's my component, and it happens on the server, but it also happens on the client. So you have less of that kind of that split. So there's this DX like interrelationship, developer experience interrelationship, and interweaving of the two. So that's one thought process. But there's also like, what's really nice is you can just send out or send down basically the component that you need. LLMs are like a great example of this, or a chatbot. If you have a very sophisticated chatbot that can like generate charts for you, for example, if you ask specific information, if you send all the code ahead of time to the client to say like, here's the chart, component in the JS to make all this stuff, that's kind of like not a great experience. Whereas if you put that stuff all back on the server and you let like your server actually decide which components to send down, that you get a lot of like benefits in terms of like what JavaScript is executed, what your bundle size looks like. There's all sorts of benefits to this. I think the best example I've seen of what I'm talking about is like Evan Bacon did the pretty, at this point, famous like RSC for basically for mobile, and showed this exact paradigm of how you could basically send down these components as these payloads in a really interesting way. So it basically creates this super cool transport layer. So I think that's what a lot of people are hoping with it. So it's like this developer experience, but it's also like all these performance benefits that people kind of see. But to your point, Amy, like there's traditional server-side rendering is still like really powerful. And if you're waiting for React Server components to come out to use a server, like you don't need to wait. Like we've had servers for years and years and years. I would say go ahead and just do server-side rendering, because for most things, it's probably going to give you what you want. React Server components are very much trying to be like a paradigm changing technology, just like React kind of was. React very much changed how front-end frameworks were working by making it a component model, which is really cool. And it took a while for us to think in components, and it'll probably take us a little while to think in React Server components.
Mm-hmm.
So I linked the Remix Run project roadmap in the chat earlier, and I was taking a look at it. And one of the troubles I always had with Remix was deploying it on Cloudflare. And while it's very easy to deploy on Cloudflare, I feel like the harder part is to take Cloudflare's context, like the database or their key value store, things like that, and like distribute it across the app easily to all your loaders and stuff. I see a story in the backlog here that actually looks really promising called Data Context. I know like it's all the way in the backlog, it's not planned, but when y'all came up with this data context, were you targeting things like Cloudflare? Did you have it in your mind?
Yeah, exactly. And not even just Cloudflare, but yeah, anything that you want. Yeah, that context, a database connection is like a really good example where it's like, I want to set this up one time, right? And then I want it to proliferate throughout my app, and I want to be able to pull it out wherever I want. So yeah, very much that sort of a thing. I think that we even have I'm trying to actually poke around here. I think in React Router, we potentially have a PR up for like the client side context provider. I don't think.
Nice.
I'm gonna have to follow up on why we don't even have this roadmap item pulled over now that you're pointing it out. But yeah, that's definitely exactly what you're saying is exactly what we're wanting. Is we want you to be able to set these things up on the client or on the server. There's a lot of benefit to having these things, and it goes hand in hand with middleware. That was the other piece of this. I think we wanted to make sure worked right, and like how does middleware interact with these things, and how do your loaders interact with these things? How do you make sure it's set up once? How do you make sure that it's safe from just people shooting themselves in the foot, with this sort of stuff. So yeah, on December 10th, it looks like Matt on the team created the support for client-side context. So I think that's kind of one piece of this that we've already started working on. So yeah, that's the fun thing is we have a ton of stuff we've been wanting to work on and have had these ideas and have had honestly a lot of code. It's just, again, it's like we have to get that major out because that's really important. That's really important to draw that line in the sand and then continue developing from there on.
How many people do you guys have on the team?
That's a great question. I think 8 last I counted. So
it's small.
Yeah.
You guys are doing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's mostly engineers, which is nice. It's like Michael and Ryan, the 2 founders, and then there are, I believe, 4 full-time software engineers, and then myself, which is, I guess I'm like a half-time engineer, but I don't really work on the library so much. I definitely am focusing more on like community engagement stuff. I'm working on like our websites and our store and all sorts of other more fun projects or more customer facing kind of projects, and then just providing feedback for the team. And then we have a designer. That's our newest addition, which has been like super duper helpful. If you like read our newsletters or anything, or have been following our blog posts at all, there's a little bit more of a touch of like design or just niceness to them. And we'll be seeing a lot more of that coming over the months.
That's awesome. I feel like Remix has always looked good. Your branding's always been really strong, but I know that translates to even React Router 7 and things that you guys are doing there. Yeah.
Yeah, Remix was definitely like the much sexier version of like React Router, and like Ryan, especially and back when they started it, they like, because they were, you know, trying to make money off of it, they were really focused on the presentation. And it's not that like, oh, we're not trying to make money now, we're not going to care about the presentation. Like we still really care about that because that stuff does matter. It just kind of changes a little bit, like how you think about these things and what you prioritize. So yeah, we're still always trying to work that out. And even the Remix brand, like we really love that brand. We're keeping that, and that's like, I think what people are frustrated with is they felt like we were giving up something. That was definitely the impression like we probably gave, honestly. Like I probably didn't do a good job communicating it all the time. But yeah, people very much thought like, oh, you're just like dropping this brand that you guys spent like 3 years, 4 years building. You're just dropping it for nothing. And it's like, no, we're really not. We're just trying to make React Router so much better. And then we're going to keep moving forward with this brand and let this brand be like the larger parent thing. It's just hard to tell that story as it's unfolding. And I think that was the mistake I made, or we probably all made it a little bit, is trying to explain it instead of just like going ahead and doing it and then showing everyone.
It's like those memes where they're trying to change the tire while the tire is moving.
It 100% felt like that. Yeah.
So you just mentioned like that Remix was a larger parent thing of React Router. Is it going to continue to be that? It's just a layer above React Router to give different functionality?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's kind of 2 layers to it. One, there's just the aspect of like, we are still the Remix team, and the Remix team does not just work on one thing called Remix. We never really did. We work on a lot of different projects. React Router for a couple of years now, I think, has been under the Remix org at this point. And so React Router is one project we work on, and it's going to be a project we continue to work on. A lot of people are concerned like, oh, you're asking me to go from, if I bought into Remix, you're asking me to go from Remix to React Router 7. Are you just going to ask me to go back to Remix? And no, that's like not the plan. React Router is what it is. It's going to look very similar to this. It's going to look like a React specific framework, or routing library, if you just want the routing library, of course. And that is going to continue, and it's going to be a great way to build applications. And we're going to continue supporting it and adding new features to it. So it's very much something we care a lot about and are focused on. Remix itself, we don't want it to be like this framework on top of React Router anymore. That just like, we don't even need to do that. If we're able to actually just have these 2 modes, like why would we just for the sake of branding, we don't want to just have this separate project. We want you to be able to say like, oh, hey, you know what? I feel like I need server rendering today. Let me like turn on the Boolean to do that and see what that looks like. Rather than like, oh man, 6-month roadmap. How do we get to server rendering? That's the story that we had before. And so with Remix, we have a lot of plans. We're going to release a lot of stuff. So I won't talk about like everything. I'm also not qualified to. But the piece we've been building in public that you can see is we're really trying to focus on kind of the low level web API like deficit that's exists. So a lot of packages are built really for Node. When you think about server oriented stuff, they're very Node specific. But the thing is, we've gotten a lot of really great web APIs, streams, all sorts of different things, files, like the actual like file on MDN. You can like go look up these APIs, and there's actually a file API, but no one ever uses it. So what we've been doing, and primarily this is kind of in Michael's like big project he's focused on, is building just like a nice set of packages that interface with all these web APIs really, really well. And these are like, right now they're in a specific library he's working on. We're going to pull them back in to ours, or several libraries. But this is to create this base layer of like what we feel there's a deficit for in just the web ecosystem, specifically the server oriented web ecosystem. So these are things you'll be able to use inside your React Router application if you want. These are things that anyone can use in any framework that they're building or server thing they're building. Right now that's the best thing I can talk about, is like we're building that layer. And again, these are things the Remix team works on. And then eventually we will start showing a little bit more of what this cohesive Remix, like new Remix, whatever version we're going to call it, is. And it's going to be a much more server oriented framework, even more so than what like the original Remix is, which is very much a server side rendering React framework. That's now what React Router is. It's got the name React in it, so it's pretty easy to keep it that way.
That's brilliant. That's one thing that I've always appreciated about the work that you guys do is that you leverage the existing web APIs and things like that. It's like the browser has been around for like what, 50 years and 40 years. And so there's primitives that are there for a reason that have stood the test of time, whether they're pretty or not, they're there for a reason. And so a lot of times I feel like with React applications, we've tried to say, well, we don't like them, we're just going to make our own. And that's not necessarily been to our benefit. And like I think about anytime I'm working within a React, I'm going to say generic React application. If I want to work with forms, I'm going to bring in like React Hook forms to do that. Exactly. It's like, no, with Remix, forms just work the way that they should work. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a nice, like, there's always an interplay between that because it's like let's take CSS, for example. CSS has gotten so good recently. And some people are like great artisanal CSS artists, and that's awesome. But at the same time, you know, something like Tailwind still makes sense for team cohesion and for consistency and stuff. So even with Remix being like, okay, yeah, forms are easy again, there's still reasons sometimes to bring that library in. But I appreciate that at least like what made me fall in love with like the Remix philosophy and why I really want to join this team is exactly what you said, Amy, of like, we're starting from the first principles. We're starting from, hey, the web is good. We don't need to pretend the web is bad and like hide all those things. It's not perfect, and there are things that, you know, we can definitely fix up, or we can like create an abstraction on top of. But let's like start at that first level and see how far we can go, just building things as if it should work on the web. Yeah, no matter what, and whether JavaScript's enabled, whether, you know, yeah, all that good stuff. So yeah, I really like that philosophy. I love that the team can think that way and can focus that way. I love that it makes it to where you can deploy a React Router app on Cloudflare or on, you know, Fly or whatever. It makes it much more universal. And I think a lot of frameworks are going that way. And I really love that. I love that the request response model is like, that's just like everything kind of talks that way now. That was not the case necessarily a few years ago, which is tough. Everyone kind of reinvented their own version. And I really love that we're just kind of getting back to like, hey, no, these things exist. That can be our common base level, just APIs that we're all use and interface with. And so many libraries have benefited by trying to just target those instead of trying to say like, oh, well, here's my next version, and here's my Redwood version, and here's my Remix version. So yeah, I think it's definitely a benefit to all, and I'm excited for us to keep digging even more into that space.
I kind of want to pivot and talk about the Remix meetup here in Austin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I kind of want to just shine a light on the community and get your take on like how you think it's going and give you a chance to plug it.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Brad. Yeah, I love meetups. I think meetups are super cool in general. Just having a local community. I know not everyone's in a place where they can do that, and you know that's okay. That's what it is. But like, if you are in a city with at least 2 other developers, like I think that it's absolutely worth meeting up in person. And yeah, you meet real people. There's a degree to which like I get very, very tired of being online. Even though it's a little bit of my job, it's just there's really amazing relationships you can make on like Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever. And there's really cool stuff you can be exposed to and learn. But there's definitely just the internet aspect of it. And just the fact that it's like at any given point, I'm potentially talking to thousands and thousands of people, and they're not going to get the context that I'm in. And I'm not going to totally get the context that they're in. And so I love that. Yeah. In a meetup, I can meet someone who's like, hey, I work at this company across the street and we're thinking about these things. Or I work at this company that's, you know, all my teammates are in London. And so I'm just looking for community here. So that's just me generally saying like in-person meetups are great. If there are some in your city and you haven't gone to them and you do have time and ability to do that, I think it's absolutely worth it. That's very much how I got started, which is like speaking for the first time, which is going to meetups and offering to do talks there. That really helped me with my communication skills, and also just introduced me to so many people who've led to really good opportunities. So with my meetup specifically, it's the Remix Austin meetup. We have Remix meetups all around the world. If you ever want to start one, just reach out to me, just DM me or something, and I'll help you out with that. But yeah, it's just it's a cool little community that really likes all the things we just talked about. They like the web. They like thinking about the web. They like building on the web. They like building things with Remix previously and React Router now, and they're always paying attention and asking great questions about what is the Remix team working on and what should they be working on, what are they not working on. And so it's very fun, focused on this like niche interest that we all have, but it's also just people who generally just like building websites and want to build a better just web together. And so yeah, super cool place. I definitely can't do it on it enough. I really do love it and love that little group, and love that that HEB has been sponsoring us for like 3 years, which is a grocery store in Texas, if that name is not familiar. But it's super fun to be able to meet there everywhere, which is where I used to work too. So I get to go back to my office every once in a while.
Yeah, it's so Texas of us to like have a meetup at HEB.
It's very cool. I definitely prefer it.
I'm glad you told me it was a grocery store. I had no idea.
Yeah, I always forget that. It's like if you're in Texas, that's a very normal thing to know, but then everyone else is just like, what weirdos, what are y'all talking about?
That's funny. I know we have a hard stop today. Brad, is there any questions you want to ask Brooks Brooks, is there anything you want to say before we do picks and plugs?
Oh man, that's a great question.
There's so much to be said.
I think we've said a lot. I guess, yeah, if you do continue to have questions, like please reach out. You can reach out to me directly, but also like our Discord is so good. We have really awesome moderators. We have people who are like know way more than I do. There's so many times I'll like try to answer a question and I answer it. I have the technically correct answer, but then just a community member will come in with like a much simpler explanation or a way better approach. So it's a really cool community. If you are struggling to understand stuff or to get started, please reach out there. And also like if you have frustrations with our docs or with React Router, or you notice something on the website, just like reach out. Like I always thought that there was this big disconnect maybe between like open source maintainers and myself sometimes. And yeah, sometimes we can be slow to respond to an issue, but like we really do appreciate feedback. We really do appreciate when people let us know that there are bugs. So yeah, just encouragement that contributing to open source isn't just writing the code. It absolutely is like getting in the discussions, asking questions, providing, documentation fixes, pointing out when documentation is confusing. So yeah, just want to say that to any of the community that's listening is I super appreciate everyone who helps me do my job better.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I can second that. It just seems like the folks on the Remix team and these all-star community members are always super available for questions, both on the Discord, on Twitter, on Blue Sky. So it's made it a breeze to get things done.
Sweet. Well, we will pivot into the next section of the show, which is our picks and plugs section, where we pick something that we like and we plug something generally that we've worked on. So who would like to go first? It's like
Brooks?
Oh my gosh, I gotta go. Okay.
If you need time, I can go first.
No, I think I've got it. My pick can be anything, right? It doesn't have to be tech.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Poof. All right. So I finally got like the third 3-Body Problem book, and I've been very much enjoying this. This was a Netflix show pretty recently. Most people maybe saw it from there, but I figure in tech, there's a lot of people who like sci-fi.
Oh no.
I really, really like these books. Did we lose Brad? Sorry, I'm
I think so. I think that was the no. It came out of nowhere.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, poof. All right, no worries. But yeah, these books are super creative. They're just like they're very imaginative, but they're also like very hyper realistic. So it's a very fun like mix of like science and fiction, which is what you hope sci-fi is. So I read the first one a long time ago, and then the second one like a few years after that. So I've taken big breaks in between, not on purpose necessarily. So I'm glad I finally got the last one. About 100 pages, I think, from the end, 150. So out of like 600. So I'm really excited to finish that and been really enjoying it.
Awesome. And then what would you like to plug?
Yeah, my plug. I guess I'll just plug some conference talks I have coming up. So I'm talking at Epic Web Conf in March. So that'll be fun. Doing one of the pre-talks, which is great. Honestly, there's so many great people that need to be up on the main stage. So I'll be talking a little bit about what React 19 means for React Router. So I'm excited to just share that with everyone and also learn it myself first. Very conference-driven development for sure. And then the second one is going to be at React Miami in April, and I'll be talking about basically route definitions, file-based routing, a lot of opinions there. The title of it is File-Based Routing Sucks, and you probably need to use it or something like that. which pretty much expresses all my opinions about it. It's like, I hate it, but you probably should just be using it anyway. So
cool. Brad, you want to go?
Yeah. So when I joined Stripe, I got like this office stipend. And so, of course, I took the opportunity to get more cool stuff for my desk and everything. And I got this thing called the Elgato XLR deck. And it's an XLR dock essentially that goes in the back of your Stream Deck. And so I just eliminated an audio interface off of my desk because now it's integrated with the Stream Deck. It's pretty cool. It works really good, and I've had like no problem.
Awesome. I was looking at the one that Tanner suggested. That was it the Movu for Motu
really weird name. Yes.
I don't know what it was. I bookmarked it. Motu MV4 something. Okay, I'm gonna stop trying.
Yeah, did it look like it's worth it?
It was about $245 USD, and it's a lot smaller. It looked like I didn't measure it, but it looked like it was the size of my Scarlett.
Yeah.
2x2 or whatever. But I have the DBX board on my desk, which is pretty wide.
It's
so
big,
if I could eliminate that or resell it, that would be wonderful.
Yep. And for my plug, just follow me on Blue Sky. Just trying to beat Amy out here.
Still. Hilarious. For my pick, oh man, I've been trying to decide between two picks. Maybe I'll do, let's see. I got a hot minute. I'll do both. So I just bought a silicone measuring cup, which has been amazing because you can squeeze it a little bit and makes pouring a whole lot easier. So I have the OXO, however you pronounce OXO, that particular brand, but I really enjoyed it. I feel great every time I use it. And then for my second pick, this one's probably a little bit more generic, but I'll share a link to this, but I've been going down a deep dive on Cursor and using all of their AI features. And there's a dev.to article where someone kind of created a cheat sheet to explain how they're using Cursor right now. And it kind of revolutionized my coding AI workflow. We've talked about before, a lot of times when you're working with AI, a lot of it revolves around your context. And so what I didn't even know is that there are settings within Cursor where you can go ahead and say, these are my settings. So you can ask it, don't give me all the chit chat, just give me the answer straight. And so it's amazing though, how much that helps just in getting to the point a lot faster. You can also create a .cursor settings file within each of your projects. And if you go to Cursor's website, they have a directory of settings that other people have created and shared. So you could say, hey, this is a remix project. These are the conventions I'm using. I'm using Tailwind. I want my components to be named this way, my files to be named this way, my folders to be named this way. And so anytime it's making recommendations, it's going to use that settings file to make those suggestions for you. One of the videos on that particular dev.to article kind of inspired me because it was explaining how they use AI to code programs and applications quickly, but they were saying they even create an instructions.md file. And it's basically like if you've worked in big tech and you are working with a project manager, they have a PRD, which I'm trying to remember what that even stands for, but it's basically a project document where it explains all the different features for a particular application. Project manager will use that as kind of their documentation to get stakeholder buy-in and stuff like that. But it's like if you create that and stick that in your instructions.md, and then you also have another section for folder structure, so the AI is aware of how you're structuring your projects, the results on it are incredible. And if you're sitting there thinking like, I don't even know how to write a PRD, what does that even look like? So I went to Claude because Claude's my new thing. And I said, hey, I'm trying to create this document so that you'll give me better answers. And it will work with you to create that document and just ask you a bunch of questions. You can answer them just like you normally would talk to somebody else. And it'll spit you out that document that you can then stick in the instructions.md file. So I've just been blown away lately by AI and how good it is. And it seems like a lot of time, sometimes the AI is terrible and it'll not give you what you need. But sometimes it's like user error. If you know how to do the prompt engineering a little bit better, it'll infinitely increase the quality of the results that you're getting back. So I'll include a link to that.
Yeah, please do. I've been using Cursor and I do like it, but
So
yeah, I
good.
definitely always feel like I could be better at it. It's so weird 'cause it's like, I feel like this isn't a skill. I shouldn't have to be learning this as a skill, right? This is supposed to make it all easier, but you're absolutely right. There is like, I don't know, there's a way that you can kind of coax it to get the best stuff out. So that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Also,
so,
Brad,
I was just going to say there's a video at the very bottom of the article. I mean, there's links at the very bottom, but there's a video right before that. And that's what I started watching. If you watch the first 20 minutes, you'll get the gist of it. But that's what made a huge difference for me.
Super cool.
Were you going to say something else?
Oh, I was going to say, Brad, I think that your plug maybe backfired because I was not following Amy before, but I was following you. And so now I am following Amy on Blue Sky. So,
oh no.
Yeah, you might not be here.
No, we have a little mini contest. We have a little mini contest. I think, so I was going to say one more thing about Cursor that's kind of interesting is I feel like things, I don't know if you've heard this philosophy before about a rubber band, that a lot of times the stretching and shrinking of it. And because React has not released a major version in a few years, I feel like the tooling has settled in. That's how I want to say it. The tooling is settled in on that particular major. And now that they have released React 19, a lot of things are changing. And so for the first time in a couple years, I feel like I'm having to learn a lot of new stuff. And so it's been interesting now learning new technology, working with React Server Components, working with React 19, and having access to AI. It is a different way of learning than how I've learned in the past. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm here for it. But yeah, it's been fun. So
that's super cool.
I know we have a hard stop today, but thanks everybody for hanging out on X, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. It's been fun just to see the numbers and know that there's somebody else on the other side. But I appreciate you guys being there. We normally record on Wednesdays live. So we're not recording tomorrow, but we would love for you to hang out with us on a regular basis. So, and you can go to Compressed FM and sign up for our newsletter. I'm resurrecting it the new year. All right. Well, thanks again, Brooks, for hanging out with us and chatting about all things Remix and React Router 7. Enjoyed having you. For now, that's all we got.
Thanks.
Sweet. So I'm going to end the stream.